Good evening, Safraz.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming.
Listen, it's a wonderful evening out there. Great sun. I think it's about 25 degrees. And for any of you who may listen to this later on, months to go, it's September the 6th. But honestly, you would think we're sitting in mid-July.
Summer, yes.
Really warm, really warm.
It's just changing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's changing. But Safraz, I've known you for ages. I've known you for ages. And I've been trying to pin you down for this podcast. And we've managed to pin you down.
Yeah.
And so for those of you who don't know Safraz, and then I'll go into why I've got him here. So Safraz is the founder and the CEO of the Pathway Group.
Thank you.
It's a skills training organisation, and we'll go into that in a few minutes. You're also an author. You've written three books from what I remember. They're great books. And you're also a contributor and a fantastic, I'll tell you, some of the articles you write for the Business Influencer magazine are just really good. And the books are called Canny Bites, aren't they?
Canny Bites, yeah.
And because they're short,
short bites,
and they're straight to the point and really, really good. So great, honestly, that some of the articles you write in here are just so good around leadership and learning. And of course, you're also a podcaster. A very good podcast, if you don't mind me saying.
Well, I'm trying.
No, I enjoy it. Now,
I'm on that journey.
Now, the reason why I was trying to pin you down for months is that you have a really good take on one of the big productivity puzzles hitting this country, which is skills. So we're not going to get productivity up of the UK economy till we get skills right. And you do have a good 360 view of the whole skills agenda. But before I go into drilling into the skills agenda, you're an entrepreneur. So I suppose the question I'm going to ask you is, how did you end up in the skills industry? So, that's not just every Tom, Dick and Harry decides to specialise in skills. So just go through your early entrepreneurial journey. What brought you?
I think just on that, Suninder, I mean, if I was to badge myself, I would put down social entrepreneur.
Okay,
so not just entrepreneur, but a social entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's nice.
So I look for the opportunity to make a difference in people's lives.
Okay.
So the business interests that I'm currently involved in are all about care, skills, foster care, those sort of areas where it's about training, retraining people, recruitment, health and social care, foster care, and everything to do with really trying to make a difference to people's lives. So it's more about social entrepreneurship, social enterprise, as opposed to entrepreneurship in terms of buying and selling and the wheeling dealing type. It's not necessarily that end of it. Nothing against that, but it's more about people and making a difference. And my background is banking and financial services.
Which is interesting.
Yes, which is completely different, more about capitalism and so forth.
That's right.
And I did that for many years. And then I started by chance, really, giving some time to community organisations, voluntary organisations and local colleges. And one of the issues really was about community engagement and about making a difference. So really, then this is where the entrepreneurship comes in, about grabbing the opportunity, seeing the opportunity and looking at the public sector and trying to give them best value. So most of all our businesses are really involved in some way of servicing the public sector. So we're a private entity, we call it profit for purpose. So we're a private enterprise, private organisation, but we're working in the public sector. But we supply services to the public sector. So that's where our focus is, and that's where I would say we thrive in terms of that end of the market.
So does that mean then that you're in existence because the public sector can't do it?
We look to add value. So the public sector talk about more trying to get efficiency savings, lean, agile, responsive. And one way to do that is creating a competitive environment. So we're in public procurement, and this is where the public sector is creating a competitive environment, looking for people who are innovative, who can bring innovation, who can bring efficiency savings, who can actually give more for less. and it's a constant drive to actually improve, innovate. It's small improvements, not necessarily big, massive improvements, but small, gradual improvements in technology and how we do things. And it's about continuously getting, more for less, and get, the quality word comes in, efficiency savings come in, innovation comes in, and all of these sort of themes come in terms of our market. So it's about working in partnership, which again is a key word, and really trying to deliver to the public sector in the best interest of the public sector.
So let's give an example then.
Yeah.
Let's give an example. You do a range
So
of
we
things.
do health and social care. So
So give me an example.
so the health and social care is one example. So we provide domiciliary care, home care. So we've been doing that since 2005. The home care market traditionally used to be one where it was social services predominantly as commissioners, but also as delivery. So they were in the front line delivering. So all your care workers, all your frontline people were employed by the local authorities. So they've moved that system now to public procurement. So now you've got independent providers who are coming in tendering for this. And what they found is that the United Kingdom Home Care Association, UKHCA, did a study where they said previously 1 hour of care that was provided was costing the local authorities around 27 to 28 pounds, but in the private sector it was around 13 to 14 pounds. So you've got efficiency savings there. I mean, obviously the numbers have changed, but it gives you an idea of what difference can that make, and all of that benefit is then going into the public sector. So the public sector focus on what they do best, which is really the commissioning, the strategy, and ensuring that everybody gets looked after, and then the private sector comes in and really looks at driving the innovation and the change. That's just the one example. We've got the other side of the business, Pathway, which is where I focus most of my efforts in, and we're currently a service provider for Restart, which is a government contract. So this is work program. Used to be we've heard all of these terms like flexible New Deal back in the day, New Deal, flexible New Deal. Then we had the work program. So these are initiatives of getting people into employment. So you've got your Department for Work and Pensions, you've got Job Centre who obviously work to try and get people into employment, and then you've got the private organisations and third sector organisations are also big in this market, who are then focusing on getting people into work, and we get paid on a payment by results basis. So the risk is transferred predominantly from the public sector, and we as private sector organisations or third sector organisations then have to look at how do we get the results, and for us it's about results. Ultimately the results then allow us to get more work, because obviously your reputation, your credibility, your performance then will give you the opportunity to stay in the market, survive in the market, and hopefully thrive.
So what you do then, in effect, is you save taxpayers like me money, because more of my money would be going to the public sector, but you're replacing them, doing it more efficiently, so they can then use that money elsewhere.
Yeah.
So the question I suppose I'm going to ask you is, at the end of the financial year, what do you judge your performance on? Impact or the profit and loss account?
So impact, we have to look at our impact. That's absolutely a word that we use in our vocabulary. We use that on a daily basis. Everything's about social impact. Everything's about giving the results, the outcomes. And those outcomes are our deliverables, and that's again our KPIs, key performance indicators. It's in our contract. We live and breathe that, and that's the first thing that for us. We don't deliver our outcomes, we don't deliver our results. We're not here this time next year, because public procurement or any procurement works on results, on performance. You've got to retender, and a lot of that is based on performance, on your track record. So so absolutely vital in terms of for us to understand the social value that we give, understand the impact, understand the outcomes, and understand really the deliverables, and really deliver even more value wherever we can. So continuously looking at that and to continuously on our feet in terms of ensuring the fact that we can hold our head high and say we are delivering more than the contract.
So a social entrepreneur, as you coined the term, means you have a much more balanced scorecard in assessing your performance than a typical private sector enterprise who probably would look at balance sheet, liquidity ratios, and would look at profit and loss account. You look at a much wider range of measures, but you have the same stresses as the normal entrepreneurs in the private sector. Any dark moments?
Of course, there's many of those. I mean, to talk about impact. I mean, you've heard the phrase. Turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, cash flow is king. We've just added impact is the main thing.
Nice.
So in our business, we talk. So we use that term,
nice.
Whenever we talk about managers, and we say, well, impact is the main thing. Let's go back to that. If you get that right, it's like in your business. If you get the quality right, you get the customer service right, everything else then just fits in. So that's definitely that. I mean, we work in an environment where commissioners, we understand their frustrations, understand their pains, understand the fact that the public sector is really stretched. You're trying to get that balance right to say, we need to earn a living, earn a crest. We need to deliver the services that we've got, but it's also about giving that extra value and so forth. And people talk about or think the fact that there's a perception there that the public sector is not good at negotiation. Let me tell you, Ninja, they're tough negotiators. They've got real tough negotiations. So this is what they do on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's just a myth there. In terms of the public sector doesn't know how to procure from the private sector or doesn't know how to procure services. Very tough negotiators, and continuously looking for that innovation, continuously looking for challenges. So it's that element where we regard them as stakeholders. They're our customer as well. We're in partnership with them, but at the same time, it's that relationship where it's continuously stretched and challenged. And there are many, but what I will say is that they keep us on our toes, they keep us on our feet, and it is a very challenging environment. And I say if anybody can work in health and social care or any sort of public procurement in terms of frontline health, in terms of the skills agenda, then more or less they can work in most of the other fields. Foster care is another one at this moment in time where it's going the way where home care has been, where a lot of foster care presently still in the public domain in terms of the local authorities have got foster care teams, and they're still controlling an element of that, and they're moving that away now a little bit towards the private sector as well, because they can fix their costs. When you're in the public sector as well, you're employing people, and you've got all the risk. And whether you find the foster carers or not, you're carrying the weight of the staffing and so forth, and the marketing and the advertising and so forth, and you can really transfer that and fix your cost. So you pay the independent foster care agencies a set fee per week. Once they're successful, and if a placement breaks or something else doesn't happen, then your costs stop as well. So there's a way of fixing your costs, and it's a fantastic way, a fantastic partnership to have, and that's our field really, and that's it's very enjoyable, but it does keep you on your toes.
You talk about the range of services. You've what, 150, 160 people work with you?
So in the Pathway business, we've got 150 people, 160 people. In the Nationwide business, which is slightly bigger, we're around 850 people there.
Wow.
And covering the Midlands. So that's it's a people business. So we get paid on the hours that we do. Currently, we're delivering around 25,000 hours. We've just hit 21 million turnover on that business. So that's a slightly bigger business, and the skills business is slightly differently structured because you get your focus is on the training and so forth. So it's got less people, but again delivers the same sort of value and impact that we try and do on the care business.
So how do you, with that many people, how do you plant or how do you make sure that your DNA, the way you think, the way you approach leadership, the way you approach impact, what you said, with that many people, How do you keep that intact? How do you get people focused with that many people on the balance card KPIs you've spoken about?
KPIs, yeah. So one of the articles I was lucky enough to write for the Business Influencer magazine was about getting the middle right. So it talks about the management. So we everybody talks about leadership. You talk about staffing and so forth, and we talk about in this particular article I talk about really focusing on your management staff, and this is where I tend to spend most of my time. So people talk about working on your business, and I talk predominantly about working on the people who are working in your business. So this is about middle line management. They're the front line. They're really the influencers in your business. And in a way, we have a sort of a partnership relationship where if they're more in tune with your thinking, your way, your culture, your beliefs, your values, how things work, then you're able to hopefully get that throughout the organization.
But how do you get that seeping through the organization? How do you, sitting where you are, make sure the person on the sharp end does what you want? So that's quite a challenge.
It is, and a lot of it is about firstly attracting the right people.
Okay.
So this is really if we talk about getting people on a bus, so it's about putting people on that bus, in terms of the right people on the bus. So that will be about their character, that will be about their sort of their competency and character. You can look at behaviors, you can you can look at their integrity and so forth, and then you look at the competency elements. So knowledge, skills, and behaviors. You get that right, and we know there's a skill shortage. We know it's difficult out there, and you've got to be constantly recruiting. So always be recruiting is a theme that we have. So constantly looking for people, and then really trying to embed your culture in terms of what that is, what that looks like, what does that feel like. So this is about the unwritten rules as well as written rules. So it's not just about your purpose statements and mission statements and all of those sort of things, but it's also being as close as possible to the front line and really understanding the attention to detail. So a lot of leaders look at the big picture, as they say, the sort of the telescope effect in terms of looking far out, but it's also having the microscope in terms of the attention to detail. And I know Ninda, you put a lot of detail in terms of what you do and how you do things, and I think that detail is absolutely vital in terms of us and how we see things and how we and what we look at, and it's about picking that up. It's not always about going in there and knocking people, but but it's also picking that up, looking for the improvements, looking for the constant sort of small improvements regularly to deliver and have an innovation within the culture. And there's a lot of themes there in terms of making sure that everybody has sort of a competency plan, they have a performance development plan, they have appraisals that work. That's very important. Not just about the KPIs. I mean, yes, KPIs are words that are branded around a lot, but also the data. So we have this thing about the integrity of that data, whatever that data sells, but also have a story behind that as well. What's the narrative behind that data? So we have a data team, management information systems. That data team gives us indication of where things are, and then we can hone in on where we can see trends or problems and so forth, and you can pick things up. So that's like a radar really for us in terms of picking that up. So it's really having that dashboard that works for you as a business leader, having competency frameworks that work for that particular job. So every job is identified, key job descriptions are there. The person that's doing the job understands what they're supposed to do. So if their understanding of the job is the same as yours, that's always a big thing. Performance development plans, have appraisals, as I said, but also be in a position where you're continuously developing teams. So we try and break things down into teams, because yes, you can have an organization that's 850 people, but you're not going to work with 850 people. So there's going to be core teams, and what we talk about is, a team isn't just about you working with people. A team is about you working together, so everybody is better and makes you stronger. So if we're part of a team, your job is to make everybody better within that team. And how does that team work and
function? What's the biggest challenge for you then, running that many people? What's the biggest challenge?
A lot of quite a bit of it is getting the people in the first place.
Yeah.
So you're continuously seeking people. You're continuously looking at things, and I think it's Jim Collins who actually said it's not about strategy. It's not really about what you're going to do, but who's going to do it, and it's about the who really. And a lot of that is about attracting the right person. When you're talking about the people that we need. It's they've got a lot of choice. They'll come to you because they have choice. It's not they'll come to you because they have no choice. So it's people that wanna come to you, and it's about people behind the brand. So people attract people. We obviously you know the sales term as well. People buy from people, but people are attracted to people as well. So that people brand, and you and I have had this conversation. Is absolutely vital. What does that brand look like, and who are the people behind that brand? And it's really creating these the personalities, the individuals there that will hopefully attract other people, and then hopefully.
How did you? Most entrepreneurs struggle, and then we'll move on to the skills side in a second. I just want to get a couple more ideas off you. So, how did you get over? Because it's so difficult for entrepreneurs. Letting go, the delegation side. What's the trick? What's the trick to?
I think control and command doesn't work anymore,
Yeah.
Ninda. And we've gone past that element of controlling everything or feeling the fact that you've got to have control every single aspect of it. I think you've got to be in a position where you're in touch with reality, what's going on. You've got people that are telling you exactly what the situation is, and are you able to trust those individuals? And trust comes over a period of time. And really, if you've got people that you can trust for certain things, not necessarily for every single aspect of it, and that will be about their capability, that will be about competency, their results, and so forth, then it becomes easier. And I'm not saying just let go, because obviously if you've created something, you're gonna make sure the fact that it lives up to its values, and you're proud of something. So I mean, I'm harder on myself than I am on others, but it's not just about letting go flippantly and saying I'll just pass it over, but it is about gradually being in a position where you feel comfortable, and we each of us have to find that level. With it's easy to say just let go and sit.
Very difficult.
Very easy to
difficult.
Say. It comes over a period of time.
Very difficult.
And I think it's too easy for people to just say you got to trust your people. That trust is earned over a period of time. And you've got to make sure the fact that you understand what that person is, how they think, how they work, and then you'll know to what level you can trust them within that, and trust isn't just about honesty. It's not just about integrity. Trust is also about are they capable, are they competent. It's not just about somebody's intention. My intention is not to mess up, but I might still do. And it's about really giving them that element of scope and enough for them to feel empowered and be empowered, not just feel empowered, and feel in control and do their things but not risk the whole business on individual decisions.
Just picking up, and it'll be interesting your insight. Let's pick up the training and leadership side of your organisation, and you say you now train people, particularly after they've left school. Now that's interesting. So does that mean that the education system is flawed, so that they have to come to you to be trained and then to get a job? Because that's traditionally why everybody, when they used to leave school, you either went to university or further education college, or you went into a job. Does that mean the education system is flawed? It's not doing what it's meant to be doing, that they have to come to you?
I think whenever you talk to business owners and particularly small business owners, they talk about they can't get the staff, and they can't get the people to do the job, and people have got qualifications, but they may not have the skills. So the two things are different. So qualifications is not necessarily skills, and skills is not necessarily somebody who's got the experience to do it as well. So all of these things come together, and it's really about competency. Is that person competent, at what level of competency do they have? So we used to have these NVQs. That was about proving your occupational competency. It wasn't necessarily about training, because that person has learned the job over a period of time. There may be some gaps in terms of some knowledge, but most of it was about proving that that individual had the competency to be occupationally competent to do a job at whatever level, whether it's a level 2, level 3, level 4, whatever the case is. So there's an element of proving competency, but now what we're talking about is really about learning as you're delivering the work as well. So most of our training is about, say, training somebody at, say, 11 o'clock, and for them to deliver that because it's part of their job. It's learning really for a particular purpose. Yeah, so we assume that people have got the ability to learn, and they've got different ways of learning. But now it's really about training people for a particular purpose. So very relevant to their work. So so it might be, for example, how short courses. We're talking about sharp courses. Yeah. We're talking about courses that are specifically for a particular job. So if you're a care worker, you've done manual handling, you've done these sort of basic courses, which say you're competent as a care worker. Yeah. But then what you're looking at is really enhancing that competency. So that might be now about how you go about looking at medication. How does that work? So we'll focus on those skills, which then enhance what they already got, so they're able to do their job at a higher level. So it's really topping up. So a lot of this is about topping up skills, topping up. So you talk about they've already got a certain level of competency. It's about adding now structures to that competency, so they can say, yes, this person is occupationally competent to do that. Say for example, administrators, they may be a good administrator, but they may not have written minutes before. So there's an element of training somebody on how to minute take. What does the format look like? How do you go about doing this and you practice that before you actually start doing that, and that could be done in a small classroom type environment, that could be done in a group session, that could be done in a sort of a peer session as well. And it's really about adding and topping up sort of skills, and really being in a position where the person knows what their gaps are as well, and really having a development plan. So a lot of the training is based on that. It's adding to what they already have. So it's education isn't the same as intelligence, as we know, but it's also about really being in a position where it's the shorter, sharper courses, and really delivering impact immediately.
So who pays for that? Who pays for those courses?
So some of these are government funded. So there's different programs. So there's something called Skills Support for the Workforce, which was an ESF program, and ESF funding is still around for a little while. So these are the shorter, sharper courses for that. Then you've got your apprenticeship programs, which are it's not just about young people. These are anybody really in terms of an apprenticeship program. So they're slightly longer programs. And then you've got your qualifications, which are very specific. It could be a digital qualification, a marketing type qualification. It could be just on shorter programs. LinkedIn is another sort of training program that we do in terms of how to create a profile. So these are predominantly, most of our funding is funded from the public sector, whether it's
yes. The reason I asked that question is, whose job is it to train people? Is it the job of the public sector, or is it the job of the private sector? And at what point do you decide it's the public sector's job, and at what point do you decide it's the private sector? Because that's and business people say to me, well, hold on, it's not my job.
Yeah.
That should be somebody else. And people in the public sector say, well, hold on, up to 16 we've done our job. Now if you want your business to flourish, you should invest in your people. And it's the dilemma, isn't it? So where should that cut off be? And you're really well placed to answer this.
That's a continuous sort of conversation that the industry, the welfare to work sector, the skill sector has, in terms of where that sits. A lot of it depends on localisms as well. So it's not just about public sector. In Downing Street, you've got local providers, and you've got skills gaps that are identified. You've got businesses that are struggling in terms of recruiting the right people, and you've got to look at the UK PLC as an economy as a whole. The public sector doesn't just give money for nothing. They have a return on investment calculator. They know exactly what that impact is going to be, or what their outcomes are going to be. So they continuously look at that, and whenever they introduce funds in, they look at the potential gain. And say, as an example, Kickstart is a program for young people that is about subsidizing wages. So you're not even talking about training here in terms of government paying for training. You're talking about somebody who's going to take on a young person effectively on a subsidy for a 6-month program. And you can say, why is the government subsidizing somebody's wage? The employer should be paying that. So you can take that even the next level in terms of why they're paying that. Why is the government paying for say grants to employ even an apprentice or any individual? And I think a lot of that is about as a catalyst, really. So it's to start things off, it's to get people going. And what they find is that where the biggest impact is about getting people from a level 2 to a level 3. So there's a lot of people who are employed, but there's no progression for them. So they're stuck in a job where there's no progression. The employer, for whatever reason, isn't investing, and what they're trying to get is really that productivity improved with that employer. So the employer sees the benefit of that, and also at the same time the individuals can move from, say, level 2 qualification to a level 3 and get out of in-work poverty, which is one of our biggest issues as a country, where people are working but they're still in relative poverty.
So I've sat on a LEP board for 9 years.
Yes.
So let me tell you my experience.
Yeah, please.
So we hear about the role of LEPs.
Yes.
We hear the role of councils.
Yes.
We then hear the role of government.
Yes.
Then we hear the role of colleges.
Yes.
Then we got schools.
Yes.
Then we got universities. Then we got private training providers. It sounds a real big mess. And could it be for that reason that we persistently appear to have a skills problem? I mean, why do we have that skills problem? And is it because there's too many people in there? And should government just let local people decide, or do you think government should keep a grip on it?
I mean, I think there's more joined up thinking than ever before.
Okay.
There's a lot of work across different sectors. Before that, you had higher education, just looking at higher education. FE, further education, just looking at further education, colleges on their own, independent training providers on their own. You've got now schools going into the college market, you've got colleges going into the university market and so forth as well. That's right. Universities going into the college market. It's all mixed to a certain level.
Very blurred.
And people are going into different areas. So you've got you've got universities now doing looking at people from the age 16 onwards, technical qualifications and so forth. So there is a lot more where it's people are looking at different opportunities. Yeah, what that does is that allows us to really understand, the fact that everything is connected. There's got to be an element where we've got to work on the same page. The individuals have got their own agenda to try and give more and grow more, and so universities are looking at more growth, and they'll see the fact that their market may have been impacted, so they'll look at competing in somebody else's market, or what was seen as predominantly somebody else's market, and likewise. And there is some partnership and there is some element of co-working, but what you find is you've got people now cannibalizing really in other markets, and what that does is creates more competition. And there has to be direction from government, and there is a direction from government. So there's the skills white paper that's come out. So there is direction, and the government has led in terms of direction for skills. So there's no doubt there is that. But what you're finding is that there's more opportunities. It's no longer the fact that you're stuck in a particular marketplace and you're just going to deliver in that marketplace. So you've got more and and what you'll find is that the better providers will deliver. And ultimately, you talk about the consumer champion and the customer champion. The end consumer always benefits from any type of competition usually, and I think it's a positive thing in terms of generally. But there's a lot that has changed, and there is more and more change in terms of definitely taking place. But definitely a very fluid market. A lot of opportunities, but what you're finding is that everything is getting harder and harder as well. And what people were doing a few years back may not cut it anymore.
Again, looking at productivity and skills and a mismatch between what industry wants and what's being provided. We hear about the industrial strategy where skills is important. What about leadership? Do you think we're placing enough emphasis on small businesses being trained in leadership? And the reason why I ask is there a link then between leadership of small businesses, their staff training, and growth of their business? Is that when it's broken down that the people who run these businesses actually never train themselves, never think about long-term training for themselves, never mind their staff?
I mean, a lot of it is mindset, really. So if even if the individual may not have the leadership skills, it's about their mindset and how open they are in terms of letting go. We talked about before, and control and how open to change they are as well. So leadership. We talk about lack of leadership generally. But we expect it not just with our leaders but everybody now. So there's an expectation that everybody has some element of leadership skills. So leadership isn't just about a title now. It's not just about just because you've got the CEO title or you've got any C-level suite title, the fact that you're a leader or you're an entrepreneur, you're a leader. But there's an expectation that leadership as a skill trait, as a way of doing things, should be something that everybody should have to a certain level to show leadership, as opposed to a leadership as a title. So that's where it's going. So it's not just about leadership, what used to be, as I said, the C-levels, but it is about everybody. And I think it does start with people at the top. So in terms of they're building the culture, they're building the environment, and they're the decision makers. So it could be that one person, it could be a board, it could be a governors. This is why having non-executive directors and having people outside your organization, consultants, advisors, and so forth, absolutely paramount, because sometimes we get stuck in our own way of thinking, and to have a coach or a mentor or a board or a non-executive panel will allow individuals, any type of business, and it doesn't have to be the larger businesses having a board. There's many examples where smaller businesses have got advisors, or trusted advisors, or a board, where that allows them a different way of thinking, and hopefully that way of thinking will deliver sustainable growth and start looking at how they can do things differently, what they can do, and really, we're all in the field of growing, generally as people and as businesses, and really it's about getting that insight and getting that sort of mindset.
Whenever I see courses advertised, they always seem to be private sector people sitting in there. And so my question is, does British industry take training seriously? I mean, do they place any emphasis on that? Because every time I see courses advertised, and I've sat on a couple of panels where I've delivered, but the room always seems to be full of public sector. It's almost that public sector seem to take investment in training seriously. Private sector doesn't, because they realise if they spend money on Mr. X and Mr. Y, the likelihood is Mr. X and Mr. Y by the end of the year will have shot off and got themselves a better job. Is that true, or am I stereotyping?
That's the Richard Branson saying, isn't it? If I train people, they'll leave. But if you don't train them, what's going to happen to them? They're in your business, causing more damage. So
that's right.
I can relate to that. I think the public sector generally have targets in terms of investment of staff, and they have structured frameworks and competency frameworks. So there is a system there. There is that they've got learning and development departments. They've got structured human resources departments, and those individuals are continuously sort of developed and grown as people. So the public sector does lead. There's no doubt in terms of that, and there is that. But what you also have is an element where businesses are looking for that competitive advantage. And how does a business get that competitive advantage? And a lot of that is through its people. So again, one of the articles, if I can plug that as well, is that every problem in a business is a people problem. Yeah. So it starts from people. So people are your greatest assets, but they can be your greatest liability as well. So it's really about understanding what your assets are, understanding how you develop those individuals, and really being in a position where if they wanted to leave, they can, but they don't want to because they're part of you've created an environment where there's no need for them. It's an environment where they're continuously growing, they're developing, they're challenging. And they've got the flexibilities that they need. So why would they? And that's really what you want to nurture in an environment. So people want to see themselves growing. There are some individuals maybe frightened in terms of training and development and so forth, but it's really that short, sharp burst, and sometimes it starts with one-to-one coaching. It doesn't have to be structured programs outside the organization. What we found is one of the best ways in terms of management training works when it's delivered as an in-house leadership program, because what you find is say you've got 3 or 4 people or even 10 people, if you can get a group of people together, not only will they learn more about themselves, about the organization, but what you'll find is that they're on a journey together. So you're creating a team environment, and you get more return on investment as opposed to sending somebody externally to a course as well. So leadership training, in-house, delivered in-house. It can be delivered by somebody externally coming in, but creating an in-house course seems to be the flavor of the day, and there's a lot of benefits in terms of that. So people are picking up the fact that there's a need for training, and if you want to hold on to your best people, you've got to look at growing those individuals, being in a position where they feel not only is the business growing, not only is there growth in terms of business and other people are coming, but there's opportunities for them as well. And it's that continuous, looking at all of these things and having that mind to say, we're on a journey together, and this is where we're going.
So training in the workplace is a lot more effective than sending them outside, because there seems to be this trend that you've got to send your people outside the workplace for them to be, distant enough to be able to think.
I mean, people talk about getting out of the workplace so they can get out of the sort of hamster wheel and they can sort of start thinking. But sometimes what happens is that for example, we've got a course which is a business improvement technique course, and that course is about solving a problem in a business. So you could do that externally, but if you do that internally, you can relate to the individuals. We all have technical jargon, we all have a different way of doing things, and say 5 or 6 people come together and you're on a path of a training program, but you're also solving a problem at the same time, then it's a real win-win. So these are sort of courses that you can now start doing, where you've got a facilitator coming in and getting a structured sort of environment going, and also working with you as the business owner. So it's not necessarily about you going out and then coming in, but you're all on the same journey, and really gives real dividends to the business owner. And the business owner can see their staff, their team in a different light, and just changes perspectives. So that's a fantastic way to really not only gel the team and bond the team together, but also really develop and share your ideas in a way without you standing and preaching all the time as maybe a small business owner. So it's really and you're possibly sitting with them as one of the one of the learners on the same level. So really fantastic way to grow and develop together.
Technology has meant that the world is moving at a much faster rate, much faster rate.
Yeah.
Technology has meant that the learners are changing. The way they digest information is changing. Technology has meant that the jobs 2 years ago we didn't see are now suddenly coming into place. And we hear complaints all the time that the reason why productivity is poor and the reason why there's a mismatch between skills and demand is that education has not kept up with this transformation, with this fast-flowing world. And as a result, I'll give you an example. Digital skills.
Yeah.
The Learning and Work Institute said since 2015, there's been a 40% drop of people wanting to learn digital skills and ICT. This is despite the rise of AI, artificial intelligence, the rise of cloud. We save everything on the cloud now. The rise of robotics. There's a serious shortfall of people with digital skills. 2007, I'll never forget it, when the iPhone came.
Yeah.
It meant the industry I was in, the music industry, we went through decimation because we couldn't cope with this new world. But what we did know is that while music was going to be transformed, so would other entertainment type of industries like film. But one gets the impression, tell me if I'm wrong here, but one gets the impression the education world has not kept up. And you hear people now bemoaning two things. One is the people that are at the end of this assembly line is either dysfunctional, in other words, not fit for purpose, or the people that are coming out don't have the skills, the soft skills particularly, to handle this new world. And thirdly, they don't have the digital skills to handle this new world. Whose fault is that, do you think?
I think there's definitely, I mean, that's a very large question there. Many aspects to it. Yes, definitely the world has changed. We've talked about it, you and I many times, and you've got to look at it positively in terms of some aspects of it, and I'm sure, myself. I mean, even though we had Microsoft Teams and we had the ability to do online meetings and so forth, I never really took the advantage of that. So we now have that choice, and we've probably had sort of a catalyst of a certain level of behaviors where it would have probably taken us maybe 5 years or 10 years for that. So that pace of change is there. What we're finding is people's attention span, definitely in terms of certain technologies, isn't there. So we're now frustrated in terms of Zoom call. Where our preferences are not necessarily to do that. Even the e-learning modules, where really they were quite boring, sort of repetitive PowerPoint type presentations. People haven't got that level of they're frustrated, and it's no longer fit for purpose. So a lot of it is about nuggets of information, but allowing people to think. So it's not just about information. Information is easy to get, but it's about sometimes being able to find the right information. And I think that's the key in terms of being able to find the right information, find the right courses. There's a lot of dearth of information that's out there, and it's really trying to find something that's right for you as an individual, right for your business, and what works. There's many themes there in terms of and the marketplace is such that we're probably only looking at two or three aspects of it. So the choice is there, but it's about us being aware of it, and sometimes that awareness isn't there. So that conscious element, we think there's only one way of doing things, and a lot of this is also about having having a network of people that you can talk to, being around the right type of people for that sort of growth. So we learn by talking to others. We learn by going to seminars, events, and looking at best practice that's out there, looking at what people are doing. And what you find is all of these things come in. So it's not just about knowledge in a book anymore, or going to a university or a classroom, but what you find is seminars, webinars, all of these sort of ways of learning. So there was a principle before which was 70-30-10 rule of learning. A lot of that was about previously was about learning from the traditional knowledge. Now it's about really short, sharp seminars, which are not necessarily qualifications. So somebody who's got expertise in an area, and somebody directing you in a way, you learn more than in a structured sometimes a program. So the way we learn is definitely different. The same way the way we do business and the same way we communicate has changed somewhat. The way we learn is definitely different. There's many opportunities out there. It's about really exposing yourself and really being able to understand what they are, and most of that now is a sort of a blended approach. That tends to work. So it's not just a fit for all. So even when you go to universities, you had your lectures and seminars before, but now you've got 6 or 7 different things. It's not just lectures and seminars. You've got you've got some structured learning. You've got peer groups. You've got different ways that you can do things. On demand is a big aspect of it. So you learn when you want to learn. Just as Netflix, we're used to that on demand. TV, on demand radio, podcasts, at your own time, in your own place, how in short bites. And that's one of the reasons, again, a quick plug in terms of what I was thinking about books as well. A lot of people take a book, have the intention to read the book, but
sounds like me.
But yeah, we spoke. I mean, I'm the same as well. You have the somebody mentions the book, and the first thing you do is you buy it, and you flick through it, but but it's just too much. And it's not because sometimes it's the intention is there, but what you need is short, sharp, and being in a position to pick it up and put it down, pick it up and put it down, and pick and choose and read what you want to read when you want to read. So you go to the index and you pick that up. So we're in that sort of on-demand world, on-demand learning, and sort of level, as I said earlier on, sort of say learn at 11 o'clock, being able to apply at 12 o'clock, being prepared in time. Yeah. So that's the culture we're in now.
So if we're talking about different styles of learning, different modes of teaching, we're now looking at having different types of people at the workplace.
Yes.
And so apprenticeships is one route in.
Yeah.
But it's been much maligned.
Yeah.
Certainly, it's always perception was if you didn't want to go to university, you went for an apprenticeship, which is wrong because these are really skilled people. But you took it one step further, didn't you? You set up the BAME Apprenticeship Awards.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued because two things come to mind.
Yeah.
Firstly, why?
Yeah.
And secondly, in a world where we encourage diversity, aren't we now saying, well, actually, these awards are only for BAME people, therefore it doesn't sound very diverse? Or there must have been a reason behind it that you thought this was something that needed to be done.
Yeah.
So maybe your thoughts on the BAME Apprenticeship Awards.
I mean, our journey in India started in 2016, where at the time it was called Asian Apprenticeship Awards.
Okay.
As opposed to BAME, and we've sort of migrated into the word BAME. And you and I will probably remember, in terms of, you were talking about ethnic minorities, we used to use that word ethnic minority before. Then we had BME, black minority ethnics, and so forth, and BEM and BAME and so forth. So these words interchange, but we're talking about sort of ethnic minority people. In some areas, even though the ethnic minority, there could be the majority. We're in a city part of Birmingham where is predominantly the majority. But what you find is that for certain qualifications, there's not the right representation. So so the government did a study, and Sachin Javed at the time, who was the business secretary back in 2016. Sort of encouraged businesses and encouraged employers and encouraged the learning providers to grow the number of people from an ethnic minority background, BAME background, to take on the opportunity of apprentices. And what we found was that there was a stigma, particularly with regard to the branding of apprenticeships. So when you spoke to people, and it's not just about employers, but also parents, the individuals themselves, the young people and people generally, they couldn't really define the apprenticeship programs, and a lot of them talked about blue collar jobs.
Yes,
a lot of
right.
them talked about people who have failed at college, and people and the word earn and learn came in and so forth. So people didn't regard apprenticeship as a first choice. They regarded it as for people who've got no choice really. So there was an element of the branding, and perception in people's eyes. And there was also a lack of understanding in terms of, what how an apprenticeship can benefit you in terms of the long run. So it wasn't just about a job; it's about career. So there's an element of really, moving people away from thinking that it's a job to a career, and that required role models.
Yeah.
And what we said was that the best way to sell an apprenticeship or an apprentice program is through apprentices themselves. And how do you do that? You highlight good practice. You highlight the individuals that are in the marketplace and make them leaders, pioneers, and bring that out as role models so they become award winners. So, our job really was firstly to how do we create interest in this marketplace. So the first thing that we thought about was that, yes, we can badge it very easily as BAME, and we have now, but at the time, we wanted to communicate that message, and marketing is all about communication. You know this better than anybody, Ninder, and it's about communicating that message to that audience. And we felt that if we added the word BAME Apprenticeship Awards, we may struggle in getting that message across to certainly parents and the young people, because that word at that time we felt wasn't common language. It wasn't in our language generally. It was a word that was used in industry. It was a word when you're at your LEP meetings and so forth. Definitely, it was a word that you were using, and we were all used to it, but not to our target audience. The people that really matter, the people who are going to come in and so forth. So we took the decision, which is a risky decision, and this is where the entrepreneurial came in, because I don't think any public sector organisation could have done that at that time, and created this initiative called the Asian Apprenticeship Awards. And we tested the market, and we looked at government, and we wrote to them to say, this is what we're looking to do, this is your policy that you've got, we've read through this is what we're suggesting, yay or nay, thumbs up, is this something that you would encourage? And most of them came back. Justin Greening and various other ministers at the time said, yes, we encourage you, we support you, but we can't financially support you or anything like that, but we encourage anything to do with diversity and giving people opportunity and social mobility. So we started our Asian Apprenticeship Awards, and at the back of that we got collateral, because people, particularly the Asian community at the time, it relates to the word Asian, British Asian, and we were able to celebrate those young people, and they became then the role models and allowed us to really push the agenda further. And we carried on with that name until sort of 2019, and we then rebranded as BAME Apprenticeship Awards, because the name BAME now is familiar and so forth, and we're now looking at the other communities as well. But British Asians traditionally were underrepresented in apprenticeship programs, but what they were overrepresented represented in university. So there's a lot more that were going to university, and a lot of them that were also NEETs as well. So you had NEETs is not sorry to use the jargon. So people who are not in employment, education, and training. So those are what we define as NEETs, and again it is a jargon that's used in the industry. So people who are not working, not studying, and so there's an overrepresentation there. And there's an overrepresentation in university. But what happens with the university then is, then there's a lot of them then who are not are underemployed really, who are then they come out of university and then they find themselves very difficult to get the jobs because of lack of experience, or there's a lot of people who've got degrees, and it becomes a competitive environment. And what they haven't got is the skills, or they haven't got is the experience, because everybody's got that qualification, and then what you've got is too many people with the qualification, and it wasn't matched to what the employers wanted. So so you're trying to solve that problem as well. And what you needed really is to people from a younger age to look at apprenticeship as an alternative choice, as not because they've got no choice.
3 sharp questions I've got.
Oh, okay.
And then we're going to wrap up.
Pressure's on.
Yep. So here we go. So the first one is 3 tips for government on how to resolve the skills problem. 3 sharp tips.
I think listen to the private sector frontline,
Yeah.
because I think they've got a sense of reality with what's going on. We've got many surveys that are done, and people who fill in the surveys are usually membership organisations, people whose job is to do surveys, and what you've got is a slight difference to what reality is. So it's some way of actually really getting to the front line, and there's a lot of these czars and ambassadors and people who represent, but sometimes that message is slightly skewed, because people who are at that level may not necessarily be in touch with what's reality and what business needs, and because it's changing so quickly. This is a long answer, sorry.
Yeah.
Because it's changing so quickly, they're by the time they're sort of reacting and acting to that, the world has changed, and it takes them too long.
So that's tip 1. Tip 2.
Well, sorry, what was it?
3 tips.
Three
If you
tips.
got, maybe just 3 is the one, but I just wonder if you had a couple more for them.
Three
So one
tips
is
for
listen to the private sector, the sharp edge.
they've got to act quicker. So
Quickly, yeah,
there's a
good,
lot-
yeah,
lot-
they take
so-
ages.
So it
Fast,
just takes too long.
Takes too long. Agreed.
In terms of that, and also at the same time, try and match up the funding. So there's a slight mismatch. You talked about it earlier on before. So at the moment you've got the Department for Work and Pensions, and you've got the Department for Education, and there's a crossover. And so Department for Work and Education is all about jobs,
Yeah.
and then you've got education, which is about education, but really the two need to talk a little bit more. So then there needs to be a little bit more cross department partnerships.
3 tips for entrepreneurs. As an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur. But this is just for entrepreneurs.
There's a lot there, but I'll start off with you got to find the right people. I think so. It's the who,
Yeah.
and it's about keeping those right people and giving them the space.
Yep.
So the first thing is understand what your weaknesses are. Be a little bit more emotionally savvy. Be hard on yourself as well, but be understanding that there's going to be people who are definitely better than you at certain things, and it's about really grabbing those people and being in a position where you allow them to deliver what you need as a business.
That's
So,
one.
Is that one?
2 more tips. So who's
So
one?
so second one is look at training and development for
Okay.
yourself, for your team, and look at it as part of your culture, your business, and how you do things. And it's not just about putting people onto courses, it's not just about tick box exercises, but it's about really bringing learning and development in the workplace on a continuous basis. So yourself and your team as well, and really be comfortable with that in terms of where
Tip
that
3.
is. So I said earlier on about putting people on, getting people on the bus, and
Yeah.
second one is
You got
putting
2. You got the training and learning,
and
picking the right people.
and putting the right people
In.
are in the right seats.
Yeah.
So it's easy
Yeah.
to get people, but you got to put them in the right seat. So I've had people who've come to us with for a particular job, and what you find is that their skill sets might be something else, and it's being able to really understand that, and and working to their strengths, and rather than their weaknesses really, and that is really where you're putting them on the right seats as well on your bus, and ensuring the fact that you're playing to their strengths as opposed to knocking for their weaknesses. And that's one of the ways to create these sort of A players in your team. So they've got you've got champions who are good at certain things, and hopefully you'll have a stronger team.
One
So
word.
They're not a short sharp.
Yeah. One word. How would people describe you?
my colleagues,
Yeah.
I mean, my colleagues would describe me as somebody. Hopefully, I'm hoping this is the case. Somebody who allows individuals freedom and choice to do what they need to do. Yeah. So it's not one word, Linda.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I like to think of myself as my biggest critic, really. I was having a panic attack before you came in. I saw this superstar who's behind.
Honestly.
Yeah, and I thought,
Honestly.
I have that all the time. So I have this fear, I have this worry that I have continuously, but it's also about challenging and continuously pushing myself, and it's seeing people like yourself, Linda, that I continuously sort of learn from, just by looking, observing how you do things, and having people around you that you would call as friends, but at the same time people who are role models and mentors, and I call you my guru, and I'm not saying that just for the sake of it, but I've learned a lot from you, and really thank you for the opportunity that you've given me.
Right, so before my last question,
Yeah.
let me just remind you, so this will sum it up.
Okay.
We've spoken about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
We've talked about delegation,
Yeah.
leadership style.
Yeah.
We talked about the importance of skills. We talked about all the stakeholders that decide what the skill matrix looks like. We looked at productivity. We looked at the role of skills within that productivity. We talked about the importance of mindset, staff training. We talked about the value of training in the workplace,
Yeah.
as about outside it. We talked about soft skills, digital skills. We've spoken about apprenticeships. We've spoken about role models in apprenticeships. We've spoken about partnerships.
Really?
All the stakeholders,
All of this.
LEPs, councils, how it's fragmented.
Okay.
And then we've only talked about slightly when you talk about networking and the importance of surrounding yourself with the
Yeah.
right people and learning from other people.
Yeah.
So a lot of good stuff there. You talked about leadership style. You talked about
Yeah.
tips for entrepreneurs. I like the one, right seats on a bus. So I suppose my last question to you is, what's your next move? Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
I think that's a slightly tricky question, particularly these days.
Okay.
Where we
Yeah.
used to have these 5-year, 10-year plans.
Yeah.
And I've also listened to some of your podcasters, some of your hosts from podcasts as well, where they say, "Well, I play by ear, and there is no game plan and so forth as well."
That's right.
I'm in the middle somewhere where we have a yearly plan.
Okay.
Yeah, so we work on the year that we can, and I think anything more than that, it's just a complete guess game. It's a complete guess game. So you start off with the known knowns. So there's certain things that we do know, and you look at those and you bring it back to, bringing back that down to quarters, and then sort of 90 days, and then the months and so forth. So our business is structured on the yearly plan, and then really bringing that into the quarters and so forth. In terms of where we're looking at is really consolidating on the contracts that we've got, ensuring the fact that we're championing customer service quality. It's a continuous lifestyle, cycle. This is so it's not getting quality right or customer service right. It's not just a tick box and that's it. So I think you've got to be closer to your customers. We've got to be closer to our learners, our employers, our funders. So you've got multiple customers, not just one customer. As really championing that and really be in a position where that's something that is passed within the organisation. So our focus presently is really championing the customer service and really the quality that we deliver.
Sarfraz, you're the founder, CEO of the Pathway Group.
Yes.
You're a fantastic author. You're a great contributor to the Business Influencer. You're a great podcaster. You believe in partnerships. You believe in collaboration. You believe in leadership. You believe in partnerships. And you also provide the best biscuits and cup of tea that I have as well.
Oh, thank you so much, Linda. Really appreciate it.
And-
Always.
And thank you for taking the time out. And guess what? It still looks sunny out there. I still think it feels like we're in the Middle East. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. It's always an honour.
Thank you.
Thank you.